Good day, friends. Maloa here. I have been loving the new 12-man raid, the Hiddenhoard of Abnankara. Not only is the scenery gorgeous in this raid, but the boss and mob mechanics are stellar. Today we're going to explore all the fights in the first zone. I have been an endgame raider in LOTRO for the past 10 years. I'm always excited when new content drops that I get to explore with my friends. So far this year, I've mastered Tier 5 of Durstruck, Poglak, and Houses of Rest, and now I've got my eyes set on Himrel. Today we're going to look at all the mechanics involved in the first zone of the Hiddenhoard. Understanding these mechanics will help you know how to survive and conquer the raid. Let's dive right in. Today we're going to be looking at the Hiddenhoard of Abnankara, the entire first zone, and we're only going to focus on Tier 1. We're going to pretty much start by looking at each individual enemy that we're going to encounter, what their mechanics are, then go through the kill order, and then at the end we'll wrap it up by looking at the boss, and I will definitely be sure to show you a demo of how my crew and I actually take down boss number 1. Okay, so we're going to start with the Ice Giant Keepers. And these keepers are the keepers of tamed frost bears. Now they do two pretty much things that you got to be aware of. The first one is the Keeper's Mark. Now the Keeper's Mark will be randomly applied to a player. You'll get a purple eye over your cartoon's head, and then you'll actually get a red eyeball, this red eyeball underneath your name in your debuff bars. What this means is the Keeper is going to send all the live frost bears to you to kill you. The red eye cannot be removed, so healers need to pay attention for when this comes up. And make sure that you heal the person that is marked. Then next is Preserving Words. This is an induction skill, and on T1 it can be interrupted. Preserving Words, the keepers are the ones that will heal up all the other giants in its vicinity. So the tanks and the ranged have to keep this interrupted, otherwise the fight will take forever to do. This is also the main reason why we typically like to kill the keepers first, because they're responsible for healing their entire raid. It's like going after the mini. But this time is the Ice Giant mini. Okay, the next one is the Ice Giant Warrior. And they do a couple of things. First is they have what is known as Fury Distributed. It is a gray bar induction. It cannot be interrupted. They pick a random target to focus on. And then anybody that is around that target will receive distributed damage. Okay, there's no marker, there's no indicator as to who the player is. They just randomly pick somebody and then does distributed damage around that person. So healers just need to be aware of that, and when the distributed happens, be ready to hit your bubble or your main group heal to get everybody back up to full health. The next is Spinning Blows. This is a 360 degrees group knockback. On T1 induction, it can be interrupted. So it's always helpful to put one of your champs on the warriors to keep them interrupted so that the group doesn't keep getting knocked back the entire time. The third are the buffs that are on the Ice Giant Warriors. First is Protection from Slows, and this means that they are unaffected by debuffs which slows them down. So like the hamstring cannot slow them down, nor can the guards slow them down from moving. Okay, and then the next one is Permanent State of Immunity, so they cannot be crowd controlled. They're immune to stun, daze, fear, and root, so that eliminates 99% of the stun abilities out there. They cannot be dazed, so they cannot be crowd controlled, so they need to be taken out. And then these two, Permanent Protection from Slows and Permanent State of Immunity, we will see them repeated on various different mobs throughout this entire raid. So after this description, I will just very briefly in the future summarize that they cannot be slowed and they cannot be crowd controlled. But that's what it means. Okay, next we have Ice Giant Seer, and the Ice Giant Seer really does only one skill, and that is called Avalanche. So the player will get a green eye over their head, and then this is pretty much a group knockback for anyone that is standing within 5 meters from the marked player. This knockback doesn't really do any damage unless you get kicked off the sides, then it's instant death, but it's just more annoying than anything else. So what this causes and requires is for people to be situationally aware of where they're standing relative to the mobs as well as relative to other players. We typically, if somebody gets a green eye on their head, ask them to run to the back or run out of group so that that player is the only one getting knocked back and not the entire group. On T1, it doesn't matter so much. On higher tiers, I'm pretty sure it's going to be important to get those green eyes out of group because it really slows down the DPS, and it also really hampers the healers from keeping everybody alive because everybody is spread out. Then you have Ice Giant Hunters. Only thing that they really do is heavy hurl. This is a gray induction bar. It cannot be interrupted, and it's just a single target knockback. Really little you can do, which is why we always leave the hunters for last. So the kill order that we usually do is we go Keepers, Warriors, Seers, and Hunters. Reason being is that the Keepers are going to heal up all of the enemies, so we want to get them first, otherwise it just takes forever to burn down the others. Warriors do distributed damage, so they've got to go second. Then the Seers kind of go next, because they're just doing the group knockback, but as I explained, you can minimize that effect. And then lastly is the Hunters. They do single target knockbacks as their additional mechanic. All of them obviously does damage, but we've found that this order has been the most efficient when it comes to taking down the Ice Giants. Now, we're at Boss 1. Let's talk about the mechanics. You have 3 giants that you're going to be facing. Kvethar, Threkvegg, and Armod. We have lovingly renamed these guys because in the fight it's just too difficult to pronounce their names. So Kvethar we call Kevin, Threkvegg we call T-Veggie, and Armod is Arnold. And so if you hear our discussions, you'll always hear us talking about Kevin, T-Veg, and Arnold. Alright, so boss buffs. All of the bosses in Hiddenhoard typically have these 3 buffs on them. First one is protection from slows, meaning that you cannot slow them down. Next one is uncommon fortitude. This means you cannot do any fellowship maneuvers on them. Third is permanent state of immunity. They cannot be crowd controlled, cannot be stunned, dazed, feared, or rooted. So that eliminates all of those typical mechanisms that we would use in some boss fights. We cannot do on these bosses. Right, so let's talk about Kevin first. Kevin does Avalanche. Okay, so the player gets a green eye over their head, and anyone within a 5-meter range of that player with a green eye will get knocked back. Now, the platform that you'll be fighting on has a very specific size. If you're not careful as to where you're standing when you get knocked back, you can easily get knocked off the edge of the platform, leading to your instant death. If this happens to the majority of people in the raid, you will wipe. I will show you in our demo exactly where we stand and how we avoid from getting knocked back. And I will walk you through that. So the other thing that Kevin does is what is called Blizzard. So for this, he will randomly select a player and he'll put a blue eye over the player. Now, that player will then drop a puddle on the ground that'll be demarked with the red box. But the puddle only drops if Kevin does an induction called Blizzard. Alright, safest bet is if somebody gets the blue eye to run out of group, drop it out of group, and come back in. The blue puddle does do a lot of damage, and if they stack up on each other, can lead to large damage. It's just a pretty much straight damage puddle. wound puddle. Okay. Third thing that Kevin does is Icy Torrent. Now, this is induction. It is called Chilling Word, cannot be interrupted, but it is typically applied to the tank. So Icy Torrent will rank up. So it'll start at rank 1, then go to 2, it'll eventually go up to rank 10. With every rank increase, the amount of damage that is being done every 3 seconds will increase. So once the rank gets up to 10, it's a lot of damage and all heals should be going to the tank. And then as soon as it reaches rank 10, it drops off and it will stun whoever it is on the tank. Because of this mechanic on T2 and above, we typically use 2 tanks, and they'll be trading off aggro to ensure that these rents do not go all the way up to rank 10. Now, I have also seen that this one specifically can also be applied to whoever is doing the most damage in the group, as well as to the healer. So it behooves you guys to pay close attention to who has this on them, and hopefully the tank can grab that off of the healer and off of your main DPSer. But keep an eye out on it. It is dangerous and it can kill people. Kevin is ranged and he's gonna barely move. It is possible to scoot him back a little bit, get him a little bit closer to the other two, so that your melee AoE classes can hit him as well. But what we found is it's just best to leave him alone where he's standing and just kill him quick. He's the one that, for us, have caused the most deaths because of the complexity of the mechanics that's involved with him. After you kill Kevin, the rest of the fight is a lot easier and a lot more manageable because you're not getting punted all over the place and people aren't running away with the blue eye puddles. Alright, Arnold. Arnold does what is known as Heavy Hurl. It is also an induction, gray bar, so you can't interrupt it. This one is a single target knockback. So he will randomly select somebody in the group and knock them back, meaning do not stand close to the edge. You want to make sure that you're safely, closely tucked into the center. Alright, Arnold puts a bleed on the tank. And just like the previous one, Icy Torrent, this bleed will rank up to 10, and when it reaches 10, it stuns. Here you can see, for example, this one has tiered up to 4. It is doing 200,000 common damage every 5 seconds for 25 seconds. That's a whole lot. And that's only tier 4. Sorry, rank 4, and this is only tier 1. You can imagine higher tiers, that's going to be a lot more damaging, so you have to manage the bleeds and the Icy Torrents. Okay, next is T-Veggie. T-Veg does a Fury distributed. It's a random distributed damage. Really nothing much that you can do about it. It's a gray bar. It cannot be interrupted. Best advice is for everybody to stay grouped up behind the bosses so that one person doesn't take the entire hit, that everybody takes the hit. Your RKs and minis will bubble up and get everybody's health stabilized before carrying on in the fight. But it's important to call that out and to make sure that people are aware that it's coming so they can take precautions. Now, T-Veg also does Frostbite. This is another ranking one. So typically it's applied to the tank. Once again, to rank 4, does 200 damage, frost damage, every, I want to say 5 seconds for 25 seconds. And at rank 10, it's going to drop off and it's going to stun the tank. Now, when the tank is stunned, there is a risk that the mobs will randomly aggro onto somebody else. So it's important to trade off this at higher tiers. So you can see we've got 3 total bleeds that are being applied. You've got Icy Torrent from Kevin, you've got Bleed from Arnold, and you've got Frostbite from T-Veggie. Now, as I've mentioned, You want those to be on the tank, because the tank is going to be able to take that kind of damage, especially if your tank has 1.4 million morale. A healer should be more than able to heal a tank through all three of those on T1. On Tier 2, you're definitely going to have to trade off with another tank. Alright, so that's our bleeds. And that's just what I said. Now, Boss 1 mechanics, there's an additional factor here. It is called Frozen Wrath. Now, it says the death of a member of the council has enraged the other council members. So once one of the 3 giants die, this buff will be applied to the remaining giants. This is the only additional buff that they get in the fight. So it's not like once the second one dies, they now get 50%, 2 buffs. It's just this one buff after the first council member dies. So what that gives them is, it gives them increased melee damage, so they're hitting harder, makes them move faster, although if you're tanking them in place, that one really doesn't matter. And then you've got increased tactical and ranged damage, so it becomes very important for the tank to keep the bosses facing away from the group, otherwise they might get one-shotted. Now, after you finish those 3 council members, Zone 1 isn't really done. You still have 3 more waves of ads to get through before you can get into the next zone. So we'll quickly look at what those mobs are like, because you will see them throughout the rest of the fight. And then after this, I will quickly do a video for y'all about walking you through the actual first fights. Okay, so now, next set of mobs, you've got cold worms. What they do is they put ravenous jaws, which is wounds on the tank. Now, they usually quickly stack up to 3. I have seen them stack up to 5. So if they stack up, and each one does about 80k common damage. So with 3 to 5 stacks, you're looking at 300 to 450 morale damage every 3 seconds. Okay, so it is a lot. They can be removed, so your tanks need to be on top of removing their wounds. Healers and RKs and Cappies all need to be aware of the fact that they need to be removing those wounds and work it into their rotations while the cold worms are up. So this is really why the worms must die first, because of the massive amount of damage that they're doing to the tank. Next, we have cold drakes. And as you can see, they have these 2 skills that I've talked about before. They've got, they cannot be slowed and they cannot be crowd controlled. They cannot be CC'd. Okay, now drakes, what do? They have an induction that is called massive breath. This does a massive frontal breath that can one-shot players, even on Tier 1. So it's very important that the tank turns the Drake away from everybody else, or you will wipe. And then the other thing is they have an aura around them that is called numbing cold, and you can see it by the snowflake, and then this little circle here represents that it's an aura. Now what that does is, for anybody that is standing close to the Drake within its aura will receive a 23k frost damage every 2 seconds, and it lasts as long as the Drake is alive. Now this is not as bad as the 80k common damage every 3 seconds, but this one is applied to the entire group. So there is an argument to be made to kill the Drake first before the worms, but the fact is that the Drake has 44 million morale, while the cold worms only have 18 million. So you should be able to kill the cold worms really quickly, stabilize, and then focus on the cold Drake, which is why we usually take out the worms first, and then we do the cold Drakes. Okay, next is the whelplings. So the whelplings, they're just annoying. They're like little mosquitoes flying around, and they will randomly select players and go irritate them. They do very, very little damage until they die. When the whelpling dies, they drop a puddle that is called Expelled Frost. This one deals 5% morale damage every 3 seconds if you're standing in the puddle. Okay, this means it is super, super, super important that people pay attention where they're standing when you're killing whelplings. I've seen it time and time again where people will ignore what's happening at their feet, and they end up in these puddles, and they're like, "Why am I dying? I'm not getting hit even." And it's really because they're standing in these frost puddles. So typically when I'm running this, I'll call out cold whelpings, watch your feet, or get out of puddles to make players aware that there is this huge damage puddle. Okay. All right. Now, mob kill order. As I've said, you've got cold worms and cold drakes and whelplings. And then just for the fun of it, they throw in 2 ice giants every now and again as well, which is the warrior and the seer. So typically this is what our kill order will be. Worms first because of the massive damage, then the cold drakes, then the warriors. Remember, the seers do the knockback, so get those green eyes out of group. And the whelplings is just the puddles. The whelplings normally just die anyways if you've got a lot of AoE classes with you, that they will just obliterate the whelplings. I mean, they've only got 7 million morale against 44 morale for a cold drake. So they will die quickly, so you don't really have to focus on them. But we just leave them usually for cleanup afterwards because we want to avoid being in their puddles. Alright. So now I am going to switch screens and I'll be right back, and I will do a quick video demo for you guys. Greetings everyone. So tonight we are gonna do Hiddenhoard Tier 1, and we've got a group of fellows here that have done this successfully a couple of times. So welcome. We have the first mob that we have here are a group of giants. We've got keepers. They will be putting the eyes up. Sorry, they will be putting purple eyes up, and summoning's putting the bears on people. We've got seers, they put green eyes and do knockbacks. And we've got warriors as well. Here we go. Okay, so we want to take down the keepers first. So this is the first mob. We tend to pull them back all the way here to the first room so that we do not have to worry about knockbacks at all. Interrupt preserving words so he doesn't get a heal off to everybody else. Next we want to do warriors. And then the seer. And then the hunters we save for last. Okay, now we're gonna hang back here all the way, and then we're gonna have the second group come in. We're gonna focus keepers, warriors, seer, hunter. Once again, we all stay back here so that we can avoid the knockbacks and being sent over the edge and dying. Just tabbing through until I get my keeper. There he is. I'm gonna start taking him down. Watching induction bars, making sure that I interrupt the inductions. Get off. Okay, preserving words. Turn that. So he doesn't heal. Next keeper. 2 keepers in this group. It's usually good if tank focuses on one and you take the other one down. Warriors are next because of the bleeds. Then the Seer because of the knockbacks. Finally, the Hunter. But his morale is already almost down, just simply because we have a lot of champs in this group. The more champs you have in this group, the easier it goes. So we're just running right up to the boss fight now. Once we get there, I will walk y'all through this fight. So we've got 3 bosses here. We've got Kevin on the left, T-Veggie in the middle, or Shrek, and then we've got Arnold on the right. Kevin will be putting 2 eyes on you. If you get a green eye, you must run out of group about 5 meters, which is about a full tile width away from everybody else. If you do that, then only you will be receiving the knockback and not the entire group. The second thing that Kevin does is he puts a blue eye over your head. If you do that, you also need to run out of group because you will be dropping a puddle if he does the blizzard induction. We burn Kevin down first simply because he does the most mechanics that can wipe the group, and he is also ranged damage. So once he is down, the fight will go a lot smoother and we'll have eliminated one of the bleeds. But remember that once we get one of them down, what happens is that the other 2 will get buffed. So after Kevin, we kill Arnold because of his knockback, and then after Arnold, we kill T-Veggie. What's going to happen is the tank is going to run to the gate, go behind the giants, and the tank is going to be tanking in the left corner of that gate with his back to the gate and pulling the giants to face away from us. There is a line running down the middle of this room that I'm jumping up and down on. You want to stay just to the left of this line at all times. If you do, you will not be knocked back, or you will not be knocked over the edge, and which will result in an instant death. Healers, a good spot for the healers to stand is on the right side of the gate, with your back to the gate. Thus, if you get knocked back, you just go flying straight up, you come back down. It really minimizes the amount of downtime you have to healing, and you can just focus on the boss. You have to, however, wait for the tank to position the giants in the correct position, otherwise you will get frontaled and you could die. You will also be getting a purple puddle. The way you know you have the purple puddle is because you will have a debuff dot underneath your name. You want to make sure that you run out of group when you get that. And then you will be back here and you will be ready for battle.
It was by the will of Hrungrad that we, the heirs of Thyrstaf, sought to forge an alliance with the dragon. We have sworn ourselves to the Frostheart, and offered her our finest tribute. In her kindness, she has promised that our home will never be stolen from us, be it by dwarves or any other wicked invaders. None
These
may
giants
come
are
unbidden
totally
to the
huge.
Hiddenhoard. Our choice is made. The bones of those who dared to defy us litter the ice below. Flee or meet that fate. We shall cast you down.
So right now I'm standing in the sweet spot. Typically if you're in this area right here, you won't get knocked off the edge. Chilling word. I am we had one person go over the edge, and that means instant death. As you can see, I've got the green eye now. I'm gonna run into this corner. When it does, it means that I'll be bumped up and down as opposed to getting up. Now you can run to any gate to do this. You do not have to do it in this. Okay, somebody has a blue eye. They need to get out of group. And you can see there's a red puddle on the ground here now. That was due to the and it does damage here. I'll show you guys. It does okay, let's go ahead. Another blue eye. So she runs it out of group. Runs and drops it all the way over there. Now we've got Kevin down. That means we're not going to be seeing any more green eyes or blue eyes. So we should be able to stand put. Make sure we get into the Kevin's banner. And just have at it. Heavy Hurl is a single target knockback. We should be all good. We're in kind of in the safe zone. The reason why we can't res any of these people is because they've fallen out of the edge and they are out of line of sight. That frozen wrath debuff that we get from after we kill Kevin. Heavy hurl, single target knockback. Great, Arnold is down. Now we're on T-Veg. Now we should know this 50% down is mostly due to the AoE damage from the champs. Bringing champs into this instance is really nice because all the mobs just die a whole lot quicker with champs because of their AoE skills compared to single target hunters. This is now the distributed, but since we're all stacked almost on top of each other, we don't have to worry about taking damage from the distributed. I'm gonna run away just to show you guys, hopefully. Oh, still didn't take damage. Okay. The tank took the damage, that's why. And that's it. Plus one fight is complete. Let's see if I get any goodies out of this. Okay, I'll loot. And I got a locket. Alright, moving up. Before we finish the zone, we still have 3 mobs to deal with. And so the 3 mobs we have on the left hand side, we've got worms, drake, and whelplings. Same for the right hand side, worms, drake, and whelplings. And then straight ahead we've got the worms, the drakes, and then the warriors and the seers. So burn order typically is going to be worms, warriors, seers, drakes, and then wrapping up with the whelplings at the end. Well, actually no, worms, drake, warrior, seer is kind of the order. Okay, here we go. here we go. I'm gonna focus worm first because the worms do the most damage if they put bleeds on the tank. As you can see, I've got tons of bleeds right now. One of them. Odd one of them. Next, we're doing the drakes. Snowflakes on your buff bar, then you are in a puddle. So you want to make sure you get out of that. We've got drakes. I don't think we've got any whelplings left because the champs killed them all. Alright, now we're going to take down the right side. We've got one worm here. And then one drake and then whelplings. Burn down the worm first. Drake next. I try not to tab through these because I have ended up in a situation where if I tabbed, I pulled the wrong group. Be careful, there's puddles down, so we all need to move out. And the wildlings are all dead. Okay, here we're gonna do worms, drakes, warriors, and seers. They do bleed. We've got two worms, so we need to do the worms first. And remember, we've got seers and they do green eyes. So we need to make sure those green eyes get out of group because otherwise people will go flying. Okay, first worm's down, onto the second worm. And now Drake. See how the tank has positioned the Drake so that he's facing away from the mob. That's very important because otherwise everybody would get hit by the frontal the Drake gives. Next we're going to do the warrior. The bleeds that they put on everyone. And now we've got only seers left. So we'll take them down. If you noticed, our LM and our Berg ended up keeping Seer's mess, which is a good strategy to use when you're doing this pull. Alright, and that concludes the first zone. If you would like a PDF version of these slides, click on the link below to download your free copy. If you want more LOTRO rating videos, make sure to click the subscribe button so that you're notified when the next video drops. Drop a comment below and let me know what your strategy is for Boss 1. See you next time.